Do you know that feeling when putting some pants on and finding a forgotten bill? That's how I felt when I tried the BSP-D3. You're still going to have to go to work, but with the difference, you can pay for a round of beers after. BSP wants to repeat the play with a new sibling, the BSP-D5, which includes additional features also for a competitive price. So let's see if it's really new or just a D3 in a new costume. Welcome back, I'm Claudio and this is Zero to Tech. No doubt, the BSP-D3 has been the biggest surprise of the year. It has more features than controllers 4 times the price, all without the fully calibrated sticks common on controllers the same price. It's not a perfect controller, but it beats pricier ones. And only if you get picky can you complain that it doesn't have features like gyroscope or rumble. But since it's compatible with the Switch and PlayStation 4, those are real issues. But apparently people complained so much that BSP decided to bring the D5. As is now common with AliExpress, the box arrived more beaten than a punching bag. And unfortunately, the controller doesn't come protected with a plastic tray. It's just covered with a soft bag and the sticks with some sponges for additional support. At first glance it looks good. It's not the color of the box, but it's the one I ordered. It also includes a USB-A to USB-C cable to charge it, and the instruction booklet completely translated and now includes everything you need to know, including how to use the programmable buttons. Let's check the design. The first thing that jumps out is the size. It's not the same as the D3, it's much bigger. If you saw the box, you already know why. While the D3 is focused on phones, this one is sold as a Switch controller. And when you put it on, it looks like some weird pair of Joycons, but it looks the part. You can use it with your phone, but it will sit in the middle. The maximum width is 178mm. With that idea, there are several changes. The select and start buttons are above the sticks, and it has the minus and plus signs of the Switch. On the left side, we also have the home button and an additional function button, and on the right, screenshot and turbo buttons. They decided to put the right stick on top of the front buttons. It still has 4 buttons instead of the real D-pad, each illuminated in a different color. The front buttons too. The D3 used the Xbox layout, but this one has the Nintendo layout, and as part of the design, along with the letters, they also included the PlayStation symbols, killing 2 birds with one shot. The telescopic system is the same, it feels like the price, and it still has the hole for the camera module. On the back it has 2 programmable buttons labeled M1 and M2, and at the bottom we have the USB-C port to charge it, a hold for hard reset, and on the other side 3 LEDs to indicate the modes and functions. Another element of the design is that they included drawings, based on the special edition Joycons for Zelda Skyward Sword. They also tried to copy the colors, and most of the available ones are also inspired by Joy-Con combinations. The left side does look very similar, but the right side has a dark blue tinge when the original has a purple hue. And the difference in the plastics is clear. It even feels cheaper than the D3. It has the same color on the back. In terms of ergonomics, it's well done. Being taller, you don't have to put your fingers below, and the handles are well designed. It has the same dot texture for better grip, but if they were more curved, it would have been better. The only strange part is the position of the right stick. Being on top, you won't touch it when you're using the face buttons, which is a common problem in telescopic controllers, and it's a good idea for shooters. But for games that use the front buttons, same as those that only use the D-pad, the position is not that comfortable. At least in this case, the size helps to compensate, and it is not that tiresome to use. In terms of features, the D5 is like its younger brother. Compatible with Android, iOS, Windows, Switch and PlayStation 3 and 4, and the unmentionable shooting V3. To choose each mode, you must press one of the buttons and the home button until it turns on. Although, it does not save a device for each protocol. If you change it, you must pair again. And as additional detail, it also works on all devices connected by USB, except on iOS as usual. You just have to connect it and it automatically chooses the right protocol. You know, to ensure less latency. The 2 programmable buttons, M1 and M2, are mapped by pressing the function button and the one you want to set, until the LEDs start to flash. Then you press the button, or the sequence of buttons you want to execute, and finish by pressing the M button you are programming. Now, when you press it, it executes the same sequence. But let's understand its limitations. First, for some reason it doesn't work in Android mode, but does in all others. Also, it doesn't record timing between buttons, just the sequence. And you can include combinations, You just have to be very clear in marking each button and the combination in the right order. You can use it for special moves in fighting games. The following two features also come from its focus on the Switch. The first ones are the gyroscope, which works in both PlayStation and Switch modes, but it also has the functionality we have seen lately for modes that doesn't support it, where you can map the gyroscope to the right stick. In this case, it is activated by pressing the function button until it turns on, first for the right stick and then for the left one. We will try it later in the video. The second one is rumble support, which works in all modes except on Android. You can adjust the strength by pressing the function button and up and down on the right stick. It does not feel great. The lower levels make double vibrations, and the higher ones feel jerky, but at least it's there. And the last feature to mention is the turbo. To use it, press the button with the T along with the button you want to activate. The first time you press it, it works when pressing the button. The second time, the button stays pressed automatically, which is great for those tiresome shoot 'em ups, and you press it again to turn it off. You can also change the frequency with the function buttons and the left stick. Very good implementation. As an additional detail, the battery is 350 mAh, which, according to the manual, lasts about 8 hours. But I wouldn't expect that long using all the features, especially with the rumble on. Let's now check the sticks. They are identical to the ones on the D3, which, if you remember the review, is a good thing, especially for the price. They look like Joycon type sticks, but they are not. They have much more travel, and their movement is smooth, and they are so much better. But in this case, the left stick has an issue. When moving it to the left, when it reaches the limit, it feels spongy, as if something is in the way. You can press it to the limit, but it's not ideal. And this gets worse when you press it and move it at the same time. It feels like something is scratching inside. And the calibration work is not as good as we've seen before. They have the same dead zone in the lower part, which is minimal, but also appears when changing direction, all the same as the D3. Drawing the circle, we see that it is also well rounded, but the left stick has a small skew to the left. Not ideal. Also, the line in the clockwise direction is different from the one counterclockwise. And this can be seen in the rounding test, where it has an error rate of 6%, and in some places, it does not reach the edge. Most likely, the left stick has a hardware issue, which is the kind of risk you take when you buy cheap controllers. Even then, it works fine. During the games, we did not encounter any issues. First, using it with PC mode, it registers as an Xbox controller, so on Android, Apex Legends and Call of Duty detect it natively. And it works perfect. Run, aim, shoot, win the game, everything's fine. The same in Fortnite. They are not the best sticks out there, but they are much better than controllers that cost twice as much. And on Android, there will always be the games that don't support controllers, like PUBG or Genshin Impact. But the controller works great with Mantis, so mapping was no problem. Then we tried the gyroscope mode that maps the movements to one of the sticks. You activate it by pressing the function buttons for 8 seconds, the first time for the right stick, and it works well. Although it's on all the time, if you don't move much, you can use the stick until you need to make minor adjustments. Better than I expected, but it would have been ideal if it was activated only when you press the aim button. If you press the function button again for 8 seconds, it's activated on the left stick, and at first I thought there was some issue because it kept pushing forward, but after thinking about it, it's made for car games, where in most of them it doesn't matter if you press up, but there are some where you accelerate it this way. The idea then is to simulate the steering wheel. We tried it with Rush Rally and it didn't go well for me, as you can see in the video. Although, if you're one of the ones who plays Mario Kart like this, you might like it. And since it doesn't have analog buttons, let's move on to the next section. The front buttons are now bigger and feel much better. The membrane is softer compared to the D3, where it was the main complaint. The travel is average and it feels much better. The only thing I didn't like is that if you use X input, the layout is reversed. It's a matter of taste, but I prefer to respect the position more than the letters. Additional buttons like Start, Select and Home feel the same. And, just like on the D3, the top buttons are all digital. And they come with the Nintendo letters L, R, ZL and ZR. The feel of L and R is the same as on the D3. They use micro switches and feel very good, with a very clear click. But ZL and ZR don't. I think they changed them to membrane, and the excellent feel of L2 and R2 in the small version was lost. Let's go now to the D-pad. They are still 4 buttons and not an actual D-pad. They have the same color lights and feel the same as the face buttons, but it is an improvement against the D3, because being closer together makes it easier to do the sequence in fighting games. It is not the same as a cross, but you can get used to it. In the separation test, it is perfect. Since it has individual buttons, there is no pivot that causes the directions to be accidentally joined. If you want to make a diagonal, you must press both buttons. So, in high precision games, it works very well, but generally, using it is more tiresome than a real D-pad. Now let's try the rest of the platforms, starting with the most important one, the Nintendo Switch. The controller expands enough to accommodate either of the two versions, normal or OLED. It has rubber blocks on the sides not to scratch it, and wedges so it won't come off. When you put the Switch, it looks like it has Joycons but bigger ones. It pairs just like any Switch controller, and once connected, you have all the buttons including home and screenshot, plus the additional features. The rumble is not as good as the Joy-Cons, but it's there. And the gyro works perfect. It has no problem with the sensitivity or sudden stops. When using it in games, it feels almost identical. You have no complaint. It's an excellent cheap alternative. The only thing is that it doesn't have the amiibo reader. To complete the rest of the platforms, on iOS it connects like a PlayStation 4 controller, and it works perfectly. There are games that do not support controller, but if the game does, as in this case Genshin Impact, you will be able to play with this controller. Very well. Same on Windows. Since it uses X input, it has universal support. Xbox games on Windows, xCloud, Epic or Steam games will detect it, so it works very well as a universal controller. The final platform is PlayStation 3 and 4. Just like the original controllers, it's a matter of plugging it via USB, and then you can unplug it and use it with Bluetooth. And in addition to the rumble and gyroscope features, we also have the touchpad button on the screenshot button, needed for PlayStation 4 games. Well, before we talk about the price, let's talk about the competition. Truth be told, it is difficult to find a specific one. It all depends on the platform you want to play. The closest one is the same BSP-D3, but the more I try the D5, the more convinced I am that it's not a substitute. The D3 focus is on phones, while the D5 is aimed at the Switch. But if you want the additional features like vibration and gyro, no question, go for the D5. Just remember it's much bigger. And for the same reason, it's more expensive, but not much. The D3 averaged $18 with shipping, while the D5 is closer to $21. I paid that amount with shipping. And for the price it's great. Even with the left stick issue, which I believe is a problem with this specific unit, BSP hit a home run again. With a controller that works much better and has more features than more expensive controllers. Now, if all you want is an Android controller, I would not say this one is the best. There are more expensive and better controllers, like the GameSeer X2 Pro. Why it's better? Check out this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And remember, retro games, modern technology, zero to tech.